A woman came out very distraught, like I said. It was natural reaction to just come up to her and she was yelling, "Help! What's the problem?" She gestured in the direction of where it all took place and said, "Oh, people are hurt, tree went down," something like that. Gotta remember, it's very loud, it's noisy, it's raining, it's windy.
And this was within 50 feet or so of your campsite, or?
10, not even.
Really?
We're right there, yeah. Because we were right at the entrance to the trail.
And you didn't hear the tree crack because of all the other noise?
Lots of trees were cracking,
Yeah, we heard
all
it
around.
all around.
I mean, there was stuff coming down, like little branches, maybe like an inch in diameter or so, or 2 inches, or all around, but not like a tree, you know, just branches more or less. So I just ran down the path. That's all I remember. I just remember running. The woods were just alive. They were moving. They were shaking. It was noisy. It was raining. And like I said, I missed the scene of where it happened because it was off the path.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back towards the site, and I saw a man going to the site of and he knew where he was going. So I followed him. We walked in there. That's how I arrived on the scene, and I saw 2 women comforting a woman that's lying on the ground, prone. And I saw a man in the river about up to his chest, with the giant tree kind of holding him down. The woman who lying on the ground seemed okay. She was in a safe spot, and 2 women were comforting her. She was wheezing and breathing hard, but she was alive. So I went down to the river to see if I can help the guy loose. And I think it was his wife. I think there was a woman there talking to him. And she said, or somebody explained to me, that he's pinned. He can't get free, and he's trapped. And even if we could loosen the trees and free him, he can't move because his back is hurt. He can't move, his spine may be injured. Everybody's thinking that what they think may be going on, but none of us are real doctors. We're all speculating. My concern was, what I was thinking is, he was about this high in water. If it keeps on raining and the water keeps rising, he's just going to drown. We're going to have to move him sooner or later, or at least got to keep an eye on that river if help doesn't come to free him. That's the only thing I was thinking. But since he seemed to be okay, and the woman was actually, I remember she was singing to him to try to comfort him, because he was in a lot of pain. He was moaning and groaning and suffering, and he couldn't move. But so I focused my attention on the woman on the ground, and I just sat with the other 2 ladies, tried to comfort her and talk to her. I was just asking her questions. I introduced myself, told her who I was. At first there was some eye contact, and she was aware. But as time progressed, she became more and more distant and detached, and started to have this far-off gaze in her eyes. And eventually her breathing became less and less, more and more apart. And at that point, I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to do. I've never been in this situation before. I know there's a thing called CPR. I'm no expert. I was CPR certified at one time in my life. I've never had to do it in my life. I did what I thought was CPR with the assistance of the other 2 women. And after a while, we were just breathing air into a dead corpse.
Yeah.
And then the firefighter came, and he took over from there. And we covered her up, and then all the focus and all the efforts went on the man in the river.
Well, after the woman came out and yelling for help, Alex went back towards, the trail and was helping out there. I stayed with the woman and her granddaughter, and I carried her into, I guess she just couldn't walk, or it was just in too much pain, so I carried her to the bathroom, and we laid her down on the floor just to immobilize her, and covered her with towels and whatever we could find just to keep her warm. She was shaking, and we were afraid of her going into shock, so kept her warm, kept her awake, talking to her. Same thing that Alex was doing out in the creek with that woman, just asking her questions, keeping her talking, keeping her awake. And after a short while, a lady probably from the camp had brought her car in. It was still raining, so that's why we brought her into the bathroom, just to get her out of that. So we moved her from the bathroom to the car, to the back of this SUV, put the heat on to keep her warm because she was still shaking and just getting worse and worse. She wasn't getting any warmer with those blankets. So we finally moved her into the car and put the heat on. She was feeling better. We drove from the bathroom to here, to the ranger station, and we used OnStar on that vehicle to call for help. So the lady who owned the car was dealing with OnStar and helping that way. And I sat with the grandmother and the granddaughter and helping them. The granddaughter had a broken arm, and her leg was hurting her too. But it was just kind of a waiting game at that point. We were waiting for paramedics. There was nothing we could do. We just kept her still and kept her awake and kept her talking. Eventually the mother came up, she was down by the creek with her husband, and she eventually joined us, and she had her arm broken. She mentioned a compound fracture is what I guess she self-diagnosed a compound fracture. She also had a dislocated finger in her other hand, and so it was a lot of bruising, bleeding, and she had her arm immobilized down by the river there. But it just a waiting game, waiting for the paramedics, and it seemed to take a while. We did have a fireman EMT come first, and he was there and helping and checking out the little girl, making sure she was okay. In a situation like that, your nerves are up, you're trying to do the best you can to help, and it just seems like it was just taking so long to get help, professional medical help to the site. And it was still light out when the first EMT came. We were trying to get some helicopters in here to evacuate them. It wasn't working. They did eventually get a board for the granddaughter and had her flat and stable, carried her out. The mom was able to walk. She just had, upper injuries, just her arms and her hands. So they were okay. She was okay with walking. I don't know. You know more about the man in the creek that was pinned.
Yeah, well,
as far as getting him out.
It was at least 7 to 10 people working on him. At that point, all the what I call professionals were there, so I took a back seat. I let the experts do their job, and chainsaws were there, and stretchers, and it was like a team effort. And then I helped carry him out on a stretcher. That's all I remember. We took him back to a truck. One of the, I think, campers volunteered their pickup truck that was there because they couldn't get a vehicle on the scene. And we put him in the back of open tailgate, put him in there, and we very slowly and idle, because he couldn't be jarred. We drove him back to here, the ranger station, and this was actually the new scene. This was just chaos over here. There were trucks and people and ATVs, and all the rescue people were here. This was like the heart of the incident after we moved the people out, because we couldn't get them up the road. All the trees are falling, so we just kept them comfortable as best we could.